All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here on Sunday for some pretty significant news from the organization. We're going to hear from General Manager Ken Holland first, then Head Coach Kris Knoblauch second, after which we'll open it up to all four gentlemen for questions. So without further ado, Ken.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you all for coming here on short notice. Obviously today's been a very difficult, tough day. Woke up this morning and we got in late last night, and I called Woody and Dave Manson, informed them that we were making a coaching change. Obviously I have a relationship with Woody that goes back to 2005 when he was the video coach with the Detroit Red Wings, and I want to thank them for the work, their contributions to our team over the last 2 years, helping us go to the Final Four and the Final 8. They work hard. They're good hockey people, but ultimately this is a difficult decision. And obviously we're in a business where you got to win games. And over the last, as we got out of the gate, and we've been, early on, you figure you're going to turn it around. You're into Game 3 or Game 4, Game 5. And as our record continued to get worse, Jeff and I have had talking on a more than an everyday basis, probably 2 or 3 times a day over the last, especially the last week, trying to figure out solutions. I've been on the phone here trying to talk to other teams to see what's out there. But in terms of trades, but when you're 12 games into a season, not a lot of teams, you got to have a trading partner. So kept hoping we were going to win a game, kept hoping we were going to win a game. And really after we lost the game against San Jose on Thursday night, Jeff and I started to talk really seriously about should we consider making a coaching change, and obviously made a decision to make that decision. So tough to do, again, very difficult to deliver the news to Woody and Mance. With that, obviously I'm excited to introduce Kris Knoblauch as the next head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. In 2015, when I was in Detroit, we were looking for a head coach for the Grand Rapids Griffins, and Kris was one of the 3 or 4 finalists. We ended up hiring Todd Nelson. So I was aware in 2015 that Kris was one of the real top young coaches out there. He was coaching, I believe it was Erie at the time, and ultimately made the decision to go with a veteran. I've followed Kris's career from afar since he got into our final, and he's won everywhere he's gone. He won a championship in the Western Hockey League. He won a championship in the OHL. What took his team last year to the Final Four. He spent 2 years in the National Hockey League in Philadelphia as an assistant coach under Dave Hackstall, and been a head coach in the American Hockey League for the last 5 years. And obviously he's got roots here in Edmonton. So I think one of the bright young coaches in the National Hockey League. And again, like I said, I followed his career from afar, and really excited to introduce Kris today as the next head coach of the Edmonton Oilers.
Thanks very much, Ken. First of all, I'd just like to thank the Mr. Gates family for this opportunity, Ken and Jeff, for reaching out and believing in me for this unbelievable opportunity. But also would like to mention or thank the New York Rangers for giving me this opportunity. I know a lot of teams would have not allowed to do that, allow their head coach in the American League to go out. So to the Rangers, Mr. Dolan, Chris Drury, and Ryan Martin, very appreciative of what they allowed me to do. And as for this opportunity, it's an unbelievable opportunity. It's been a crazy 24 hours for myself. I was on the bench yesterday in Hartford, and now on a plane to get here, and here to be able to coach the Edmonton Oilers with such a strong hockey culture, history, and passionate fans. To be here as a head coach is a little bit of a dream for me. I'm from around here. I came from Saskatchewan. I came here to play junior hockey in, I believe it was 1996 for the Edmonton Ice. Stayed here, played for the University of Alberta, Golden Bears. Met my wife here. Have a lot of friends here, and just So the fact that I have this opportunity to be here with the Oilers back in Edmonton is really, really exciting for me.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Kris and Ken. We'll open it up to the floor for questions. Just please state your name and organization before you ask the question. So go ahead.
Jason Greger, Sports 1440. Jeff and Ken, kind of for both of you. This organization, Jay Woodcroft had like over 600 winning percentage, 6 most points since he's been here. At what point, or can you take about the discussion of, you know, the coach pays the price again for a group that's underachieved, and that's happened a few times here.
I think that's why I've said it's a difficult decision. Certainly we've played at a high level I think the second best winning percentage over the last 120 games under Jay, but we're in the win now mode, and I think we've talked about that over the last few years that I've been here, I think since I got here. When you look at our team, the players on the team, the age of the team, the time is now to try to win. I guess we could get into debate, is 12 games or 13 games enough? I think if you wait another 10 games and things don't change, it's probably too late. So we just felt that, Jeff and I felt that it was something that needed to be done.
And Kris, can you talk about, you're coming as a coach in a situation like this. I don't know if you've been in a situation like this. How quickly can you put your fingerprints on a new team as a head coach?
I've only had one experience of coming in mid-season. That was a long time ago. When I met with these guys and explained my experience coming in mid-season. And the first time, I'll admit, I did terribly, and I learned so much from it. And I know it's important that if you're coming mid-season, you can only do so much on changing the systems and lines, and the players have to have some stability. And there are things as a coach you want to put your stamp on, and this is really important for me. I see that we're failing in this area. We need to improve that. But as a coach coming in, you can only do so much. You can only change so many areas. I really want to get involved, reach out to all the coaching staff. I met them just briefly a few moments ago, but make some progress there on the lay of the land, what's going on with the team. I have my opinions. I certainly want to hear theirs, but I also want to reach out and talk to the players, veterans, young players, get their perspective, let them know what I'm expecting from them. And ultimately, I see a very talented team, underperforming, obviously, that's why I'm here. But ultimately, I'm trying to build something, and we can obviously have the success that was anticipated at the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
One thing, Ryan, the other thing I didn't, when we started to clap, obviously Paul's on the end of the table there, Paul Coffey. Paul is going to replace Dave Manson to work with our defensemen. Obviously, Paul's the greatest defenseman in the history of the Oilers franchise. He's been with the organization now a number of years. Paul's watched every game, has a relationship with all our players, especially our defensemen. He's been around a lot, on our team for stretches. You guys have seen him around here. So I've talked to Paul a lot over the time. So I think Paul is a great man to come in and work with our defensemen. And like I said, he really knows the team, and I think he'll really be beneficial with Kris.
Thanks, Ken. Go ahead.
Yeah, good. And Ken, since you mentioned it, maybe I'll start with that, Paul, if I can. It's definitely unique to have an assistant coach who's also an advisor to the owner. I think that's pretty unique in the league. Maybe just a thought on how you handle both of those roles and make sure that chain of command and everything just all makes sense for everybody.
Well, that's all about respect, and the respect I have for this organization. And Darryl is second to none. I will say out of the gate that I wasn't lobbying for this job. I know that Ken and Jeff had talked quite a bit. And Jeff kind of said something to me the other day. Would you ever think of coaching? And I said no. I'm very happy with my position. I'm happy with the strategy and the conversations I have with Darryl and Kenny, et cetera, in the organization. And It kind of came about yesterday afternoon. My wife, I told her 6:30 last night. That was a shocker to her. But for me personally, nothing but respect for Jay and Dave. It's terrible that two great coaches had to take the burden of the start of this team, because I think there's a better start out there. But stuff happens, and as most of you know in this room, that I'm very tied with the Oilers. I love the Oilers. All of us do. All of us that won the cups in this organization. It was still to Jeff, no, but I'll do anything to help. And then having a quick conversation with Kris prior to his game last night, and getting a feel for him, getting a feel for his strategies, and I just said, hey, any way I can help, I will, and that puts me here today. I'm an assistant coach. I work for Kris. I work for Ken. Jeff's higher up. Daryl's the owner of the team, but my focus will be on the players. Never ever coached in the NHL? No. Do I understand the game? Yes. Do I understand players? Yes. Do I how to make them better? Yes. Can I communicate with them? Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
I guess, Kenny, I'll direct this at you, but Jeff, if you want to address it. When you're new coaching in the NHL, some early speed bumps can be normal, and all due respect, Kris. The margin for error for this team is very slim. So is there a concern level that you're putting people in place that haven't necessarily run those miles as a head coach in the NHL, considering the dire nature of the situation?
Well, I think as Kris said, I think certainly Glenn Gullickson and Mark Stewart are going to be very, and Coff too. I mean, Coff is, like I said, Paul has watched, he knows our team. He was in training camp. He watches play all the time. So I think, I know that Kris and I talked, he's watched some video or quickly on the plane, or in the last 24 hours, he's watched some video of our recent games. But certainly I think he'll probably lean on the people that have been here in the short time until he gets a feel for the team. Obviously, the hope is, for my hope, when it's almost 2 years ago that made the decision, obviously, to go from Dave Tippett to Woody, and the team really responded. I know Woody came in again. I don't think he made a whole lot of change. He made a few tweaks, and then you think he went to 11-7 and did a couple of things, and we were about 6 or 7 games points out of a playoff berth, and played our way into the playoffs and went on to the Final Four. So there's more time. There's still 69, 68 games to go on the early going. I think he'll probably lean on the people that have been here and implement the things that are really important to him.
Rob?
This one's for Ken. So what happened with Jay? Did the team tune him out, or what was the issue here?
No, I don't think they tuned him out. I think that there's probably some players in there that are disappointed about this decision today. I'm paid to make decisions, difficult decisions. Some decisions work, some decisions don't, but certainly I felt that, again, with lots of communication with Jeff, just felt that needed to make a change. We weren't playing good enough. I think there's lots of runway left with this change to try to make a surge here and try to play our way back into the mix. But I don't think they lost him, but I couldn't wait around for another 10 games, 15 games to find out.
Okay, and a question for Jeff. Now, this is 5 coaches in just a little over 8 years for this core group. Is it fair now to say that the core group might be where some of the fixing needs to be done?
Well, I would say that, I came in 3 months ago into this job sort of with a long-term view of getting some structure and strategy. I sat here in front of you guys then. That's still the case. I can't control what happened in the past with coaching changes, different managers over the years. I think our focus is that we have a team that we believe should compete for the Stanley Cup. I'm a long-term strategy person, but I'm also here to try to win this year. So, like Ken said earlier, we've been talking a lot. We've got our entire pro scouting group and analytics group working overtime on scenarios to try to make us better. We're pursuing every avenue to do that. Bringing in Kris was a decision, like Kenny said, that we thought we had to make. Although he doesn't have head coaching experience in the NHL, I think with 12 years as a head coach, winning championships in other leagues, developing players in the American League, had a little opportunity in New York to be a head coach on an interim basis. He has a very good feel for the players. He knows how to take the really star players and empower them, but more importantly, he gives everyone a role, and they know what their role is, and there's accountability at the end of the day. And that's the thing that I've watched it over the years with Kris. I was very close to the team when they were in Erie. I had a lot of clients, not just Connor McDavid. I had clients of ours when I was an agent in Hartford. I've seen what he can do with teams, so all of that put together, that's why Kris is sitting here today.
I want to add one thing to that. When Rob, you say, I believe in the core. I mean, we've played, I think nobody's played more than 5 playoff games the last 2 years. Some teams won 4, and then, we've gone to the Final 4, we've gone to the Final 8. Last year we were top 5 or 6 in the league in points. So we've lost to the last 2 Stanley Cup champions in series, and they beat us and won the cup. So I believe in the core. I just think it's that we're in the prime. We're 13 games in. The time is now, and just could we wait 10 more games? Obviously, we won a real good game last night. Could we all of a sudden have parlayed last night into a win on Monday and a win on Wednesday and a win? I can't read the future. Made a decision that felt we needed to make a change to kind of jumpstart our season. I don't think it's got any, on the core. The core has done it. We've done it over the last 2 years. So it's just it's the nature of the National Hockey League. It's tough. It's a hard league, and we didn't want to wait around any longer.
We'll go up front here to Tom.
Tom, Edmonton Sports Talk, Tom Zola. For Jeff or Kenny, obviously a decision like this comes with a lot of deliberation. You guys have to meet and discuss. Does the players' leadership group come into the conversation? Were they brought in to discuss potential options for this team moving forward? Is that something that you guys bring into consideration or have done before?
Because I have talked over this past week with some of the veterans on our team. I'm not going to tell you what they said. I take the information. Ultimately, I have to make decisions. Obviously, Jeff's got a long relationship with Connor. You can probably talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we didn't consult with the players on this decision. Never spoke with Connor or Leon or Nuge or Nursey or any of the other leadership group. These guys are here to play hockey. That they know that's what they want to do. They don't like being involved in these types of decisions. That's my experience. So the fact that Kris was Connor's coach in Erie in 2014-15, it only has something to do with this because I think Kris Knoblauch's a very good coach. Connor didn't have anything to do with this decision, and neither did the other leadership group.
Just one more in terms of the assistant coaches. I know, Kris, you're coming in here. You just had a chat with them. Everybody's role kind of staying the same in terms of the guys that are still sticking around on the coaching staff?
Yes.
Yes, everything's staying the same. Obviously, there's going to be some different responsibilities. I'm going to get to know them. As I said, I've only talked to them briefly a few moments ago. But I really want to know what their strengths are, how they feel our team could be playing better. And, I've talked to Paul myself a little more in depth. And I just think I'll be making some decisions on what's best for the coaching staff and where we can delegate so we're the strongest.
We'll go over here to Derek.
Hey, Kris. I just wanted to just your thoughts on your relationship with Connor McDavid, and how does the relationship change from when you had him in junior to now a superstar in the NHL?
Well, I'm sure it's going to change quite a bit. I was very happy, obviously it's an understatement to have him in junior. I had him when he was 15 for half a season. 16, he was by then he was one of the best players in the league, and by 17 he was absolutely star, dominated the league, did not deserve or did not belong there. He was just that good. So the fact that I got to coach him in Erie, I feel very fortunate to have that opportunity, and now to be able to do it twice is, I'm pretty lucky there. So as for the relationship, over the years we've stayed in touch a little bit, but just with the odd text or whatever, but not in great detail.
And just seeing him from afar this season, what are your impressions of him? He's obviously not playing at the level that he has here for a little while. There's been some questions about his health, but I just wondering what you've seen out of Connor so far this year.
What I see out of him is what I see from a lot of the team. A team that's trying very hard, very passionate, want to win, want to do what's right, but ultimately right now are very frustrated. And as a player who's played any kind of sport, obviously in hockey, that if you are frustrated or feeling down, it is tough to perform at the highest level. And as Ken said earlier, this is a very difficult league, and you need all your players playing their best, but your best players being their best. And right now, I want Connor and everyone just to take a breath, relax, play hockey, and find some joy into it, and play the way they can. Because right now, I just think there's too much pressure on them, and they're feeling it. So that's my take on from what I've seen afar from watching some video. But when I talk to those guys, maybe I get a different perspective. But that's what I see right now.
Thank you. We'll go to Steve on this side.
Hi, Steven Sandor from Canadian Press, and maybe just want to clarify some timeline stuff here with Jeff and Ken. You said you started speaking about this Thursday night after the loss in San Jose, but when did you actually come to the final decision that, yes, the changes made, the phone calls are going to start going out? Was it before the Seattle game?
Yes, yesterday afternoon. Jeff and I talked yesterday afternoon. The team was on the road, obviously in Seattle, and made a decision that we were going to, obviously, to get the wheels in motion. We had to get permission from the Rangers. Had to obviously negotiate a contract. We played Saturday, played Monday, we played Wednesday. So whether it was yesterday or the day before, it wasn't something that could just transpire in 12 hours. It was, we had to get him from Hartford to here. So officially made the decision at some point in time Saturday during the game, and made the decision that when we got home last night that I would meet with Jay and Dave, and I met with them this morning.
Have you ever had a situation like that in your managerial career where you knew you had a coach that was going to go out and coach a game, and basically that was going to be it?
No, obviously the first time I made the change mid-season was when I let Dave Tippett go and brought in Woody 2 years ago. So every other time I made my coaches, Scotty Bowman retired, Dave Lewis went into a work stoppage and made a change coming out of a work stoppage. I had Mike Babcock for 10 years, and he became free and left to go to Toronto. And I did make the change with Dave Tippett. So this would be a first.
Jason?
Chris, Jason Gregor, Sports 1440. The one thing that's kind of been consistent around Edmonton is goals against have been too high. If you want to be a championship team, you look at the teams who win, they lower their goals against. They did it down the stretch last year, but then not in the playoffs, and obviously this year it's not that level. As a head coach, how do you get your players to buy into the consistency necessary to be good defensively?
Well, first thing, and I'm sure every coach talks about it, is if you're going to have success in this league, you have to be good defensively and reduce your goals against, and that's on the penalty kill and 5-on-5 play is obviously a big part of that. And throughout the years, last year I think the 15 of the top 17 teams made the playoffs, or top defensive teams on goals against made the playoffs. And the year before that it was 16 of 19. So obviously there's very strong correlation that if you are a good defensive team, you're going to have success winning games. And I think any player wants to have success individually, but it feels a lot better winning as a team. And I think my time as a head coach, and certainly my time in Erie, is I was fortunate to have some really good offensive players. And through my time, I don't think I hindered their offensive production at all. But my time there, we were always either first or second in goals against average. And I think I try and empower my players to commit to playing defense without having to sacrifice any offense. And, you know, that's certainly a message that I'm going to try and instill into our team. And hopefully, if I'm going to be successful, you know, it'll show with the wins.
We'll go back to this side. Jack, go ahead.
Kris, you mentioned it's no easy task coming in mid-season, and you were embedded in that Rangers organization. In terms of relationships, who may serve as linchpins for you to start building those relationships and working that side of the coaching side? Because obviously there's X's and O's, and there's relationships with your players.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood your question.
When you take over mid-season, you're a Ranger guy. You don't have a lot of pre-existing relationships here with that. What will be your process in terms of establishing those relationships with players, which arguably are just as important as the X's and O's?
All right. Well, I think my first resource is obviously the coaching staff, the Stewie, Glenn, that have been with the group for a while. Obviously, these men up here with me. I've already, on the flight, have been talking about what this player needs, what's his identity. Obviously, I know some of these players very well from watching them on NHL, watching NHL games, and some of these players I've coached. So I have my view on what players bring, but you know, that's just a shell of what they really are. And I think I need to get some more information from these guys, and then I need to get to know my players. And tomorrow, hopefully I can start tonight with some phone calls, but tomorrow when I meet with them, try and meet as many as possible and get some, building some relationships. And, you know, I'm sure they'll share their frustration. I'm sure a few of them will be hesitant on, you know, was this coaching change necessary? You know, some are going to be very excited about it, you know, but I think in my career as a coach, I've done a pretty good job of connecting with my players, giving them an identity, and working on them to become better players. So, you know, tomorrow's going to be a big step, first step.
We'll go to Kevin.
Kevin Carey, Sports 1440 for Ken. How difficult was it with Dave Manson because of what he's had to go through the last 4 or 5 months personally? How tough of it was to make that call with Dave?
It was incredibly difficult. I would say it was emotional. I mean, you build relationships with people, right? And I went to Prince Albert in August for the celebration of life, you know, for Manson's wife, and my wife Cindy. They were good friends, so it was, you know, on top of just the decision. Certainly, there's that factor into the decision, made it all that much more difficult. So that's why today's an incredibly difficult day.
This was the first, Jeff, maybe I'll ask you, this was the first decision, big decision as a management group that this group has come together and made. Just, I mean, where did the final decision lay? How was the process on where the trigger was finally pulled? Whose call in the end is this?
Well, Kenny said it best. I think we've been talking a lot every day since the beginning of the season, since we lost in Vancouver on opening night. And that dialogue's been going on the entire time. We agreed on a lot of things, and the one thing we agreed on was that we've been very inconsistent. We played 13 games. I think we probably played 8 or 9 really good periods in there. We've had stretches in games where we looked dominant, and then we've sort of fallen off. So, you know, that sort of was the theme of our discussion, is like our consistency is not where it needs to be. And we talked a lot the last 2-3 days. There was no ultimate decision maker. We talked about it. I was like, what do you think? Here's what I think. And we came to the decision together.
Kenny, we've been hearing consistently from not just Jay, but from the players, that it's not necessarily systems, it's big mistakes, right? Big critical mistakes at bad times in games. The highlights bear that out. But do you think that accountability was an issue or is an issue with this group? That when big mistakes are made, coaches have ways of holding players accountable. Is there enough on this team right now? Does there need to be more in-game accountability with players so that these big mistakes start to diminish?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm not sure if I got, if I had the specific answer, we probably would have addressed it far sooner than this. I mean, the coaching staff, was doing video every day, and I've sat in a bunch of the meetings here over the last week, and working on this and working on that. So they're trying to hold them accountable. I think all coaches trying to hold their players accountable. Some are better at it than others because maybe they're for whatever their message is or how they do it, or I think it gets to be a little more difficult when you have a 21-man roster than when you got a 23-man roster. For the most part, almost every game we play, we only can dress the players that are healthy. So the coaches can use when you got a 23-man roster, 14, 7, and 2, you can healthy scratch some forwards and you can healthy scratch a defenseman. We haven't had that at our disposal because of the salary cap and the decisions that I made on the team in the offseason. So that's one tool that the coaches use that wasn't at Jay's fingertips. Certainly you see in some games players get sit out for half a period or a period to get their attention. Woody and I did talk about that, so it's not like we haven't talked about that. Ultimately, he didn't do it, and we were. I was fine with that. I understood the reasons why, and we went over. But and again, it wasn't right. It wasn't. It hasn't been one. But it's been these consistent. These mental. I call them boo-boos. They're mental mistakes that. You play, you can do lots of good things, and all of a sudden you have one mental mistake, a bad pinch, or a bad this, or a bad turnover, and it's in the net, and it's not only that the one goes on the board, it's what it does to your whole team cycle. It's like drip, 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 drip. And probably it was something that we had going on again last year, and then at the deadline when we got, I'm talking, I guess, the defensive aspect of the puck, when we brought in Echo, we finished, I think, the 9th best team in the league. In goals against. I think first off it was bringing in Eki. You're bringing in a big 6'4" guy that can play 20 minutes, but also it's what it does to the team emotionally. They really responded to it, and now we're kind of back to drip, drip, drip. And I don't really know if that's on Jay or Woody. Obviously, we made a coaching change, and I'm hoping that with the coaching change that it's good. There's going to be less of those mental mistakes.
Chris, just one last one. Chris, what's your approach to, this is a team that has been talking about big mistakes all year. What's your approach to trying to help players get that out of their game? Your approach to accountability versus, trying to work with these guys?
It's probably the most difficult thing with coaching is holding guys accountable because as a coach, you don't want your players playing in fear. You don't want them every time they're over hit the ice, over the boards. Is this the shift that I make a mistake and I out of the lineup? Is it when I get benched? All that. You want your players feeling empowered that they can make a play and contribute to the team. But obviously, accountability is very important. And as a coaching staff, it's very important for us to empower the players on having the confidence in making the right plays, giving them guidance, direction on what to do in each situation. And if there is mistakes, as a coaching staff, you got to be able to live with them. But if they're coaching staff or mistakes that happen over and over again, or if they're lazy mistakes, then obviously that's where you have to hold them accountable. And the biggest part of holding players accountable is just taking away ice time, whether they come out of the lineup or you withhold their next shift or is it a period or whatever it is. Ultimately, that's the currency that a head coach has.
We've got time for a few more. Go ahead.
Paul, just over here, Derek. Just want to ask you about what have you not liked from the blue line so far this year, and how do you approach to try and fix some of those errors and mistakes that we were just talking about here?
Well, I've liked everything about our blue line. Unfortunately, sometimes we've been a little bit inconsistent. Why I say that is because there's guys that have really good games. I think the simplest thing for me with Kris and Stewie and Gully, my approach is going to be anyway, just trying to get them as consistent as possible, not trying to play outside themselves, play their game, and play the odds. Know where you are on the ice at all times, stay off your backhand. But I like our defense. I think we've got a really good defense, but defense isn't one or two players. It's a group, and I think if we play as a tandem, I mean, I always said as a defenseman, you need to know what your partner's doing before he does. I'd like us to communicate a little more, but I like our defense, and we're only going to get better.
Bob Stauffer. Kris, just a thought, you've had some success with Hollowell this year down in Hartford, but the Oilers tried to switch to more of a zone defense. They pivoted away in Calgary in the Heritage Classic, went back to a hybrid. What do you sort of play defensively, and are you a more assertive coach in terms of what you want to see with the neutral zone? Because this is a team that likes to skate a bit.
Yeah, through the neutral zone, I think you talk or you hear NHL coaches talk what is successful, sorry. And it's about playing fast, moving the puck up immediately, getting the puck to the forwards to make plays. And the longer that we hold the puck and as we say, dust it off and slow the game down, all it allows is the opposition to get into position, get into their structure, which makes it just more difficult to generate any offense. So one of the things that Paul and I have been talking quite a bit about, and our team is going to hear about, is playing fast. But then mostly that comes from our defensemen moving the puck up. And we do have some defensemen that are very capable of skiing the puck up. And there's going to be times where that is necessary. But ultimately, it is getting the puck up the ice as quick as possible into our forwards' hands to make plays. And simpler is often the best play. And so that answers your neutral zone question. As for the defensive zone, we're going to exactly look at what the Oilers were doing in these past few games. Personally, I feel much more comfortable with a zone, more of a zone structure defense. I think with the personnel that we have here, it's going to be very similar to what they were doing, where a lot of teams in the NHL are kind of going to that type of system, where the defensemen stay in their quadrants, closer around to the net, have the forwards, low forward, expand a little bit more. Certainly I want to be more aggressive in the defensive zone. The less time you spend in the D zone, the less time there is opportunities to take penalties, make mistakes, and ultimately give up goals. I want to encourage our players to play fast and strong in the defensive zone, but I also want to be in the offensive zone, where we can take advantage of them not being prepared, not being in their structure, because often that's where goals happen. They come off mistakes, and the slower you play, less opportunities you have to take advantage of those mistakes.
Great, thank you. Final question.
Hi, Kris. Tony Brar, Oilers TV. In your 4+ seasons as the head coach in Hartford, what are some of the lessons and experiences that you can leverage to get this team to play to its capabilities?
Well, I learned a lot of lessons in Hartford and my junior hockey and my time in Philadelphia. But I think the most important thing is your players just have to feel good about themselves to perform. And right now I see some guys who are very, they're beaten up. They are frustrated, put so much pressure on themselves to perform, and it's just hasn't been healthy for them. So, sometimes when you get a new head coach, it almost starts, it's a new regular season. Last season's over and you're starting a new one. It's a fresh. Everyone starts, and you hear about hitting the playoffs. Everyone's got zeros, meaning no one's got a goal, no one's got an assist. It's a new season. Ultimately, that's what you get with a new head coach. It's a reset. And, hopefully our players see this, takes the pressure off them, and all right, let's get back to basics. And I think it's just not going to happen with a new coach or a new message. But I do think that there is a very strong group in there, a very talented group, and things will get worked out, and it'll be a very successful and entertaining hockey year.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and welcome back to Edmonton, Kris. We're going to end the formal part of the press conference here.